Welcome to Innovation Radar on the Innovation Front, where we discuss technology trends and innovations in Africa. Here we bring you expert insights and data on Africa's position in the global technology ecosystem. Today, we're talking about one of the most important shifts happening in global transportation, the move toward electric vehicles and what it means for Nigeria. Earlier this month, the Nigerian Senate passed the Electric Vehicle Transition and Green Mobility Bill, a major step toward cleaner and more sustainable mobility. The bill lays out plans for local EV production, charging infrastructure, and incentives for investors and users. But what will it really take to make electric vehicles a part of everyday life in Nigeria? A country still battling with inconsistent power supply, limited infrastructure, and affordability concerns. To help us unpack this, I'm joined by Bolu Abiodun, one of our senior reporters here at Techpoint Africa. Bolu has been covering Africa's electric vehicle space for over 4 years, tracking the shifts, startups, and policies shaping the country's EV adoption. My first question regarding EV adoption is, what's its current state of adoption in Nigeria? What's the current state of electric vehicle adoption in Nigeria?
I would say one way I would describe the current state of electric vehicle adoption today is, I would say it's rapid. It's rapid, and that is relative to whatever other country you want to compare it to. But from my own perspective, I would say it's rapid, and I would say it is unique. It is unique in a way that it follows the same pattern you see electric vehicle adoption in other emerging economies, and that pattern is it usually starts with two-wheelers and three-wheelers, especially two-wheelers. So right now, I think on the streets of Lagos, if you drive around for 20-30 minutes, there's a good chance that you see an electric bike. Yeah.
Interesting. And I know that you were doing some research on tricycle, electric tricycles. So what do you think? Because I know that whenever we hear about electric vehicles, people are very excited about it because we want to see more of that.
Yeah.
Tricycles, two-wheelers, and more four-wheelers. But there's also confusion because there aren't enough infrastructure, there aren't enough charging stations and stuff like that. So what is the state on the ground from that research that you did, from the people that you spoke with?
So what I discovered is that adoption is easy, like I said, with two-wheelers and three-wheelers because of that infrastructure limitation that you mentioned. It is easy for these smaller vehicles because they don't need that very expensive infrastructure. They don't need a Tesla supercharging network, for example. Most of them use something called battery swaps technology. So within minutes, it's just like you're driving and you just need to change out a small car part just to keep on moving. So that makes adoption easier. It makes it faster, right? It makes it make sense for people that have decided to start using EVs. Imagine if a dispatch rider, for example, had to stop at a charging station for 20 minutes, right? That's like very valuable time. But with the battery swap technology, it's just and within 5 minutes or less, right, he can continue his work. So what I discovered with some of these tricycles is that some of them are finding a way to replace their internal combustion engines with electric motors. And it's interesting that they've also found a way around the swap technology thing. And what is also interesting is that this thing is not being done by some massively funded startup or corporation, right? It's being done by like very small guys that have figured out a way to start putting electric motors on tricycles. So the next few years, right, regarding EVs will be very interesting in Nigeria.
Interesting. So, as opposed to so we're seeing EV adoption at the lowest levels,
Exactly.
right? So, as mostly people who are doing these switches, are they like mechanics, small mechanics, roadside mechanics, or?
I would say they are they are above that
Okay.
by a significant percentage. They are above the regular road
Regular
side. Yeah.
mechanics. All right. So earlier this week, or I think that was last week, the Senate passed a EV transition bill for its second reading. So I want to, from your perspective, and I know that you've seen some things about the bill. Do you think that if this is passed into law, it can increase adoption, or what do you think? What kinds of changes do you envision that this bill might be able to facilitate?
Personally, I don't think that bill will do much because it is sometimes when it comes to things like this, when it comes to adoption of newer technologies like this, you need to let things take their course, right? There are a bit of, I mean, you can manipulate things a bit, right? But when you try to force it too much, right, it will not bring out the desired results. One thing that was interesting in that bill is that the government wants, EV manufacturers that want to sell in the country to also create like assembly plants in the country, things like that. And the truth is, you first need to look at, okay, are there really foreign EV manufacturers that are interested in the Nigerian market right now? And the answer is no. Maybe save for BYD that recently announced that their entrance into Nigeria, we do not have that many electric vehicle companies that are interested in coming into the market. And that is because the market is different, right? The market is just, like I said, just for two-wheelers and three-wheelers. If we are being completely honest, in fact, it's just for two-wheelers, right? You will not have someone like Tesla saying they want to come into Nigeria, for example. You will not have, other, well-known EV manufacturing companies, vying to come into the Nigerian market. So that part of that bill, for example, will not really do anything. It will not achieve anything, right? Because it's not as if there's demand for your market, right? The only part of that bill I think might do anything would be, tax breaks for manufacturers and also for users, right? That might work. That might do something. But we already have something like that going on, right? So the bill does not completely address what the market needs. And honestly, what the market needs is the market needs money, right? The market needs investments, right? That bill should try and facilitate investments. It might facilitate some investment, with the tax breaks that manufacturers might get, but it needs to do more because that is actually that's like the major challenge for the market right now. So to be honest, I really don't see that bill doing much.
Thank you. I find that interesting because I think what we see a lot of the time with governments is that they want to go from ground zero to 100.
Exactly.
Yeah. So for example, I think we're speaking about this earlier with the situation in Ethiopia, where they completely banned petrol cars. Don't import petrol cars. We only want to be seeing EVs, and they're not seeing the kind of adoption that they envisioned they would see.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I hope that doesn't happen with Nigeria. So, but
it will happen. I mean, if they don't make the necessary adjustments to that bill, we'll see the same thing happen. There are probably just 1% of Nigerians that can afford to buy even the cheapest four-wheeler EVs, right? And that does not send a good signal to the manufacturers that you want to force them to start to build a plant in your country. Like, what is the need for me? Like, nobody can afford my car, so it just doesn't make sense. Yeah.
Right. So I think you have mentioned BYD, but I also want to know if Nigeria will see more EV adoption, maybe with two-wheelers, with tricycles. Who do you think will be the biggest players in that space, and what do you think it will take?
Okay. I think the obvious answer would be Spiro. Spiro would be the biggest player when it comes to electric vehicles in Nigeria, and that is because just 2 years ago they had less than 8,000 EV bikes on the road, right? Across all their markets in Africa, I think they're in about 6 to 8 markets in Africa. They had less than 8,000, and today they have about 60,000. And by the end of the year, they are looking to get to 100,000 electric bikes on the road. So that shows you that it shows you the speed at which they are moving. And they recently got capital injection of $100 million, which shows you that they also have the capital expenditure to achieve some of the goals that they've set to achieve. And it's also worthy to mention other players like Max has been doing well, right? But when you compare, that level at which they're operating to what Spiro is doing, you see that there's a significant difference, right? And I also think Spiro will be a big player because of I think they are not just about increasing vehicle counts on the roads. They have very interesting ways of getting insights, right? Of getting data that they can use to inform how to grow, who is using us, how are they using us, what do people need. Spiro knows where every Spiro bike is on the road.
Interesting.
All over the continent. They know what the battery percentage is, right? They know, they have very cutting edge. So behind all that hardware that they are releasing into the road, there's a very strong software backing, right? So it gives them a lot of leverage. It also opens doors for other avenues to make money for them, like other revenue sources for them, because it means that you have data, and you know what they say, data is the new oil. So yeah, I think they will definitely be one of the biggest EV players in the country.
And what other things do you think it will take? What other factors come into play?
For Spiro to
not for Spiro, but just for the general, market,
we need more capital, right? We need more capital because we have a couple of players. We have Spiro, we have Siltech, we have Max. We have all these guys that are trying to, do something in the EV space, right? But I feel like capital is one of the major things that might hold them back, right? And we also need the country to just get better, right? Because if we are going to scale beyond, because the truth is, yes, adoption is happening, but if you notice, it's only happening on the commercial side, right? The delivery bikes, you don't see that individual adoption, right? And that will happen for a while until it will take two things for that to change. Well, for us to see individual adoption, it will take two things. It's either EVs become so inexpensive that it's now competing with the average Toyota Corolla, or Nigerians become rich enough. We have a lot of Nigerians that are now rich enough to say that, you know what, I can decide to buy a $30,000, which is probably one of the when you talk about EVs, $30,000 is really low, right? When we get to that point where an average Nigerian can say, let me buy this 30K EV, right? That is when we'll now start seeing adoption across board. But for now, it's just going to be mobility and logistic companies that are buying these vehicles to improve their bottom line.
Nice. And I noticed that when you were speaking about the big players, you've mentioned Spiro, you've mentioned Max, and both of these people are their mainstay. I think it's two-wheelers.
Two-wheelers, yes.
Yeah. So why are we not seeing any? I don't know, maybe assemblers. I don't know what, just local people manufacturing four-wheelers.
It's difficult, right? It's difficult, and like I said, the main problem is money. It's expensive, right? I think for now, the most expensive part of an electric vehicle is the battery. And battery technology in Africa, it's not really our fault, right? So if you're building a four-wheeler that's going to have a display, it's going to use air conditioning, is going to have cameras on the side. I mean, it's going to feel like a normal car, right? It means you need bigger batteries. Bigger batteries means more expensive batteries, right? Let's even assume, right, that you sort of have the money to produce these things. Who will buy it? Right? That's the first question. Who is going to buy it? You might still have some people on the mobility side, right? We have some, nowadays we have some of these ride-hailing companies that only use electric vehicles. I think I've seen a couple of them. I can't remember their names now. But even though these guys do not yet have the kind of market that Uber, Bolt, and InDriver have, for them to patronize manufacturers or assemblers of four-wheelers in the country, right? So another impediment to four-wheelers is four-wheelers, you can't do battery swap for a four-wheeler. It's a massive battery. Except you want a very terrible disaster. I mean, for now, swap technology is not possible for four-wheelers. So there's a lot of things standing in the way for four-wheelers, right? So it will take some time. And like I said, two things. Technology becomes a lot better, that things get inexpensive, or, infrastructure is not that big of a deal, right? Or people become rich enough. So if any of these three don't happen anytime soon, I'm sorry, most of the EVs you will see will just be dispatch rider.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Right. Well, thank you for that. And I think my final question on this would be, what do you think it will take? Because you've spoken about how we need more money, right? And Spiro just got this huge investment. What do you think it will take to have more of that investment coming into Nigeria, coming into Africa? Because I went for this mobility summit recently, and what many of the people who are manufacturing EVs from Kenya, from Uganda, all they're talking about is we need money, we need investment, and those investments, we see them in Western countries. We see the way Tesla is moving. There's a lot of money there. So what do you think it will take, even if it's just for our two-wheelers, right? What do you think it will take for us to see that the flow of investments into Nigeria?
So I think investors need to see that if they put money into such a venture, the returns will be good. And I think if it's just for two-wheelers, I think most of them are starting to see it, right? Two-wheeler EVs make sense, right? Based on a couple of people I've spoken to, two-wheeler EVs make sense. I mean, 130 to 200 kilometers on a single charge, that will save you about 30% in petrol costs, right? So it makes sense, and I'm sure that investors know that if they decide to invest, and that I think it's one of the reasons why we are seeing the huge investment in Spiro, right? Because it's not a coincidence that we are seeing that investment at this time, where they've increased their fleet, they've increased their swap stations and things like that, and the investment came in at that time. I think another thing that investors also need to see is that there's the talent for it, because it's one thing to build a business around this thing. It's another thing to have the talent, right, that can work in those businesses. And talent is an issue. One thing Spiro is doing is, I think they started an academy, right, where they are training people on ground, right, people in the countries where they are, to give them the skills needed for them to work, in a place like Spiro, right? So I think that is also something that needs to improve before we see more investments coming. And yeah, You just need to see, more companies take like really, really big risks, make really big moves, right? And I think the EV adoption will improve. The EV market will also see like an explosion, right? Yeah, and maybe not on the level of fintech,
Yeah.
right? But we'll see if the founders, if those startups make really big moves, we'll see something interesting in that space.